This episode of Scott Bromley's Internet Rabbit Hole is brought to you by GoDaddy. Remember when video games and TV shows used to trick you into learning? Do it, Rockapella! Yeah! So last night I was watching old episodes of He-Man when I realized two things. A, the show is still terrible, but I love it. And number two was that in the early 80s, almost all TV shows and video games were either long commercials for toys or mindless filler. That all started to change towards the end of the decade when school computer labs were filled with awesome edutainment games like Odell Lake, Number Munchers, and my first experience with a third-person shooter ever, Oregon Trail. And as a strange coincidence, and possibly as a means to fool dummies like me into learning, PBS started airing a whole slew of programs like Ghost Rider, 321 Contact, Al TV, Reading Rainbow, and my personal favorite, Square One, to educate kids after school with cleverly masked educational skits. I loved Mathman, which was like a hybrid of Number Munchers and Pac-Man, and MathNet, which featured two hard-boiled LA detectives armed with calculators, taking down baddies with math. Square One is also where I learned how big a billion was thanks to a song by the Fat Boys, and it's also why I know that Google is not just a search engine, but a number that has 100 zeros after it. Square One even had a couple of game shows peppered into the mix with real kids as contestants to latch onto the whole kids game show fad that Nickelodeon ushered in.
Hi, I'm Reggie Cathy, and welcome to Square One Squares, the game show where you separate mathematical fact from fiction.
And speaking of edutainment and game shows, PBS took probably one of the biggest and best educational video games, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, and turned it into the greatest children's television game show of all time. The show was hosted by former Double Dare assistant Greg Lee and pitted three kids against each other in a geographic trivia thunderdome, all while the a cappella doo-wop group Rockapella sang about everything happening on screen. The show was so popular, even future Vice President Joe Biden made a cameo. But the real excitement came at the end of the show, when the final kid would have to try and catch Carmen by picking out spots on a giant map with a police siren. It was impossible if you weren't a brainiac. And still, to this day, as a college-educated adult, I cannot for the life of me tell you where any country is in East Asia. Yet these 10-year-old geniuses could find Turkmenistan on a map like it was California.
California.
And because of the success of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, PBS started experimenting with animated shows and hit pay dirt with a little cartoon called The Magic School Bus. A cartoon show I've never actually seen before. So, since it would be disingenuous for me to get all nostalgic for a show I've never seen, I'm gonna have Rev 3 Games resident child Nick Robinson come out here for a second and explain it. Take it away, Nick.
All right, so The Magic School Bus is this show based on these books by Joanna Cole. It's about this woman named Miss Frizzle. She's a teacher of a third grade class. And there are all these kids in her class who are recurring characters. So you've got Arnold, he's the nerdy redhead. Carlos is the Hispanic jokester. DA's like kind of the nerd girl. Ralphie's the jock. Tim's the artist. Wanda's the tomboy. And then there's Janet, who is Arnold's cousin, and she would like show up from time to time, but she wasn't like part of the main cast. And then you've got Phoebe, the girl who like, wouldn't shut up about how things are at her old school. She'd always be like, at my old school, and it's different jokes. Anyways, they were all going through like time and space and getting on a magic school bus, just going around planets and gravity and flipping through different body parts, going in the mouth and out, and it was great.
Oh, so this meme totally makes sense to me now.
What meme?
This picture that places the Magic School Bus kids next to the Planeteers from Captain Planet and theorizes that they are the same people. Basically, the internet believes it goes down like this. Gaia from Captain Planet kidnapped a bunch of kids and brainwashed them into thinking they were constantly at school. She did this by taking on the form of Miss Frizzle and instilled in them a lifelong obsession with ecology and science. And when the class matured in age, she wiped their memories and sent them back to Earth as sort of a tree-hugging sleeper cell, only to be given power rings in their teens and allowed to unleash their reign of earth, water, wind, fire, and heart on all the bad guys who dared to loot and plunder.
Captain Planet, he's our hero, gonna take pollution down to zero.
But since there were only 5 Planeteers, some of the kids didn't make the cut. Phoebe was unable to be brainwashed, hence her constant memories and tales of her old school, and Janet and Ralphie didn't make the cut either, and the internet wants to believe that they escaped, but upon their return to Earth, They entered a time warp, which not only rapidly aged the two kids, but melted their brains in the process. Which would obviously mean that Ralphie became Hoggish Greedley and Janet became Dr. Blight. Crazy for that one, internet. But I'm gonna add one more layer of crazy to this nutty rambling theory. So, Lily Tomlin played the voice of Miss Frizzle on the Magic School Bus, and she was in the movie 9 to 5 with Jane Fonda, whose ex-husband Ted Turner created Captain Planet, which starred LeVar Burton as the voice of Kwame, who is not only on Star Trek The Next Generation with the voice of Gaia, Whoopi Goldberg, but hosted Reading Rainbow, which featured an episode where Keisha Knight Pulliam, who played Rudy on The Cosby Show, read the book The Magic School Bus Inside the Earth. But you don't have to take my word for it. And if you want to make websites dedicated to your own rambling 90s cartoon theories, you should use GoDaddy. GoDaddy has all sorts of .com domains available for just $2.95. Seriously, for $2.95. Visit GoDaddy.com and enter the promo code GAMES295. Some limitations apply. See the website for details. Well, that's all the time I had for you this week. Did you enjoy this episode as much as I did? Good. You should give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, I'm Scott Brownlee saying don't delete your internet history. God damn it. Mm-hmm. Beep, 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 beep. Yeah!